Bonjour mes amis and welcome to Cinema Rose, your go-to channel for movie comparisons. I am your host Basha and now I will drop the funny French accent. Pourquoi mes amis français tell me that I do it very badly. Today, as you can see, we take you to a very exotic locale, the Casbah of Algiers in Northern Afrique, to explore my favorite topic, l'amour. That's French for love. And where better to start looking for love than with the greatest lover than the world has ever known, Monsieur Pepe Le Pew. What, you say? A cartoon character? But of course, we all have to start somewhere, and if you're anything like me, well, not many people are, but if you are like me, then your very first love was a cartoon character. Mine was Mighty Mouse.
Here I come to save the day.
But I soon moved on to Underdog.
There's no need to fear. Underdog is here.
I guess I had a thing for superheroes back then, but it didn't take me long to turn my attentions to the star of our show, who is a lover, not a fighter. But did you know that Pepe Le Pew was inspired by a movie character? That's right, Pepe Le Moko, played by French actor Jean Gabin in the 1937 movie Pepe Le Moko. Can you see the resemblance? How about in profile? Isn't he a dead ringer? But don't take my word for it. The 1962 Pepe Le Pew cartoon called the Casbah gives a nod to its cinematic origins by showing the front door of Pepe Le Moko's home in the Casbah right alongside that of Pepe Le Pew.
I had just set up bachelor's quarters at number 15 1/4, Rue de la Mangy Dragon.
So who is Pepe Le Moko? He's the most feared, respected, and well-loved gangster in Algiers. And as his story opens, he and his gang have just pulled off a jewel heist of enormous proportions, and the police are desperate to bring him in. There's just one problem. He's hiding out in the Casbah. It's a place you've probably heard Pepe Le Pew mention.
You do not have to come with me to the Casbah. We are already here. Do not come with me to the Casbah. We shall make beautiful music together right here.
But what is the Casbah? It's the ancient fortified quarter of the old city, and its narrow labyrinthine alleys and vaulted passageways, suitable only for pedestrian traffic, twist and wind up and down stone staircases concealing many hidden, interconnected courtyards, cafes, private homes, and rooftop terraces that are accessible only to those who know where to go and who can get past the ever-watchful eyes of the local residents. With spies on every rooftop and in every gutter, Le Moko's eluded the police for 2 years.
Tu l'as vu, toi, Pepe Le Moko? Moi? Je ne le connais pas.
But it's not all fun and games. For a man who's used to his freedom of movement, it's no picnic for him to be confined within the walls of the Casbah.
Tu sais bien que tu pourras jamais t'évader de la Casbah. Ils veulent t'arrêter. Ils se rendent pas compte que c'est déjà fait. Essaye de sortir un peu pour voir. Un pas dehors, il y a plus de pépé.
And, as a man who's used to having his freedom to love him and leave him, he's not too thrilled with keeping the same female company day after day, night after night, as we can see from this scene with his gypsy lover Agnès, played by lineage.
Ah là là, 2 ans de Casbah, 2 ans que je suis avec toi, ça commence à faire un contron, tu sais. Mets-toi à ma place. Inès le matin, Inès le midi, Inès le soir. T'es pas une femme, t'es qu'un régime.
Pepe Le Pew, on the other hand, has no such problems. Although he visits the Casbah from time to time, he comes and goes as he pleases, and we often see him in Paris. When it comes to the fairer sex, however, he is perfectly content to go after the same tender morsel time after time.
Ah, my darling, how beautiful you are.
Ah, mon chéri, it is an affair d'amour, is it not? And now, my little noblige of Oblace.
And although it usually seems that he'll go after just about anything in a stripe, there have been times when, just like Le Moko, The shoe's been on the other foot, although he's usually much more polite about it than Le Moko was to Inez.
Madame, control yourself. Your conduct is unseemly. Control yourself. Madame!
Now, let's get back to Algiers. One day, someone new drops into the Casbah, a posh French woman with a sense of adventure and an appetite for danger. And she's looking for thrills by seeking out the infamous gangster, Pepe Le Moko. Swathed in furs and dripping in jewels, she seems totally out of place in the Casbah, which is the seamy underside of the city. At first glance, you might say she's out of his league. But then you don't know Pepe. His charm captivates not only the ladies, but everyone who knows him, even the police. Watch as he banters playfully with Inspector Slimane, who hangs out in the Casbah waiting for his chance to bag Pepe.
Moi, je t'aurais Pepe, mais autrement. Chouïa, doucement, à la fatigue.
T'es trop petit, mon grand.
Je t'arrêterai, Pepe, c'est écrit.
Vite, 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 vite. Vite. Et si tu m'obliges à te descendre?
Inch'Allah. Mais tu me méprises trop pour me descendre.
T'as une bonne bouche.
Tu trouves?
Ouh, mais dis donc, elle est belle ton indéfrisable. Qu'est-ce que tu dois faire comme péguin, toi?
Mais où est-ce que t'achètes ton rimel? Ça te fait les yeux coquins, mon vieux.
Adieu, inspecteur de mon cœur.
And his reputation as a ladies' man is the stuff legends are made of.
Mais où habite-t-il? En face? Des fois en face, des fois sur le côté que tu te touches le cœur, des fois sur l'autre, va savoir. Sa maison à lui, c'est partout où tu trouves une femme.
Quand on tuera Pepe, il y aura 3000 veuves à son enterrement.
Of course, self-confidence counts for a lot.
On t'aime trop, Pepe, les femmes te perdront.
Oh, rassure-toi, va, je leur donne mon corps, mais je garde ma tête.
En tout cas, quand on te dit je t'aime, on n'y met pas de discrétion. Hein?
Qu'est-ce que tu veux? J'ai du sex appeal.
Like his namesake, Pepe Le Pew is also self-confident, perhaps a bit overconfident of his own sex appeal.
Oh, but pardonnez-moi, but permit me to introduce you myself. I am Pepe Le Pew, your lover.
And he's undaunted by any social obstacles that may try to stand in his way. Because, in most cases, when he first lays eyes on the object of his desire, he naturally assumes that she's one of his own kind.
Kitty, s'il vous plaît, no le hurt.
And why wouldn't he? Likewise, when Pepe Le Moko enters a friend's house after a narrow escape from the police and sees a posh lady sitting there, he's not intimidated in the least, and their eyes lock from across the room. Of course, as an infamous jewel thief, he's interested in more than just her pretty face, and her jewels seem to hold as much fascination for him as women. So, is he more interested in her smile or in those diamonds dangling from her ears? Of course, Pepe Le Pew enjoys the finer things in life as well.
I want to tell you, I love you so.
Affaire d'amour. Affaire.
A little subtle, perhaps, but...
And he even includes himself among those finer things in life.
A loaf of bread, a jug of wine, and me?
But to him, nothing is more alluring than a belle femme.
I was taken by surprise. In a moment, my pajato stole away. A smile was all you gave to me.
Ah, my little darling.
And how does the new love of Pepe Le Pew's life respond to him? For the first few seconds, she's sometimes intrigued. But in the time that it takes the scent from under his tail to waft up to her delicate nose, she has a change of heart.
We will sail the sea of matrimony together.
And what about Pepe Le Moko's new love interest, Gabi, played by Mireille Balin? What does she think about him?
Comment est-il? Sympathique et effrayant.
And while Le Pew usually gets right down to business, Le Moko, always the gentleman, takes his time with the courtship phase. But that's not to say that he's passive. After a conversation about her jewels, Gabi invites him to put her bracelet back on. She's playing hard to get. But then, that look of fascination in her eyes leads me to believe that she's as turned on by the more unsavory aspects of his reputation as she is by his charm. To diffuse the situation, he invites her to dance. But, not to be outdone, our little Monsieur Le Pew cuts a very fine figure on the dance floor as well. Emboldened by their chemistry on the dance floor, Le Moko is perhaps feeling a bit entitled. Or maybe he just feels that the moment is right. So, he leans in for a kiss. This alternating attraction and resistance becomes a theme in the early hours of their courtship. But for poor Pepe Le Pew, it's mostly resistance and repulsion that he encounters, although he seems to be perfectly oblivious to the effect that his charm, shall we say, is having on the object of his desire.
May I call you darling? You may call me streetcar because of my desire.
Le Moko does eventually win Gabi over, and she promises to return the next day. Their mutual attraction is undeniable now. They discover that they grew up in the same neighborhood in Paris, and he reminisces about all the things he misses about the city that he may never see again, now that the Casbah has become his own personal prison. He tells her that she reminds him of the metro, and makes it sound like the greatest compliment a man could pay a woman. And then he goes in for the kiss.
Il est temps.
Whoa, she's really playing hard to get, and definitely keeping him on his toes. Of course, Le Pew would have handled this completely differently.
Hello, Pat Pie. How about a date?
All right, chérie. The courtship is over.
But Le Moko can read Gabi like a book, so he's content to bide his time. And it pays off.
À demain, Pépé.
À demain.
Je tiens toujours mes promesses.
Now the man who claims that he always keeps his head seems to have lost his heart. The next day, in anticipation of her visit, Le Moko is singing from the rooftop, and when Pepe sings, the whole Casbah dances along.
Amour, ça vous prépare tout en rose. C'est vraiment la seule chose. Rendu du soir au matin, amour à ça. J'allais danser le défi, je m'en fous. Que faut dire?
Of course, his little striped counterpart is fond of singing as well, and since he always seems to be in a good mood, he may well be the most musical skunk in recent history.
Sweetheart, Pepe Le Pew loves you.
Tiptoe dans les tulips avec moi. Bonjour, Monsieur Frog.
Alouette, chante, alouette, alouette, jaune des plumarées.
Vagabond le pas qu'on joue. Et le chouet moi des moins.
Meanwhile, Le Moko seems to have every woman in the Casbah helping him prepare for a romantic dinner date with Gabi.
Oui, mais arrange-moi ça que ça ait l'air de quelque chose, hein. Avec des coussins, des cendriers, et puis tu mettras des vases avec de la fleur. Et puis, t'arroseras les fleurs d'eau de Cologne pour que je sois sûr qu'elles sentent bon. Et puis autre chose, tu me mettras une table avec 2 couverts. La croûte et puis le pinard, moi je m'en occuperai, j'y t'apportera ça.
She never shows up, by the way, but that's another story. Pepe Le Pew, hopeless romantic that he is, doesn't need any help getting ready for his rendezvous. He's a guy who gets things done, and fast. Yes, these two Pepes have so much in common. And while Pepe Le Moko is luckier in love than Pepe Le Pew, Monsieur Le Pew is luckier in life and goes happily from one romantic misadventure to the next without a care in the world. I think we can all be thankful to Pepe Le Moko for inspiring this adorable character who's brought so many hours of laughter to people around the world throughout the years. And now, let's turn our attention to some of the other characters that have been inspired by Pepe Le Moko. The first is Toto Le Moko, which is the name of both the spoof based on Pepe Le Moko and its lead character. Released in Italy in 1949, it stars comedic actor Toto, whose real name, Antonio Grifo Focas Flavio Angelo Ducas Comneno Porfirogenito Gagliardi de Curtis Bizancio, was probably what led to him becoming a comedian in the first place. I mean, with a name like that, what else are you going to do? Instead of a remake, Toto Le Moko is more of a sequel. The story begins in the Casbah right after Pepe has died. His gang is determined to find his heir and to get him to pick up where Pepe left off. They finally locate his sole heir, Antonio Lumacone, in Napoli, Italy, where he works on the streets as a one-man band.
Mia bella signorina che ascolti lassù, chiudi gli occhi e sogna finché c'è la gioventù.
We immediately recognize that same air of self-confidence that Pepe Le Moko exuded, albeit with his own personal touch.
Tu non capisci niente, io sono un genio musicale.
When he receives a letter telling him that he'll inherit all the possessions of the relative that he never knew he had, along with a band of the very best men, he misconstrues the meaning.
Potrò dirigere una banda, finalmente avere una banda mia.
He heads off to Algiers and receives a warm welcome in the Casbah. Toto happily sets himself up as the leader of the band, and his naivete when he and his band go off to their first gig at a fancy hotel is more reminiscent of Pepe Le Pew than Pepe Le Moko.
Ragazzi, tirate fuori gli strumenti. Facciamo vedere a questa gente che cosa siamo capaci di fare.
Unbeknownst to Toto, the gang have all hidden machine guns in their instrument cases. And when he begins conducting, they open up fire on the crowd below from their vantage point in the mezzanine.
1, 2, 3.
While the gang is busy robbing the people in the hotel, Toto, who is scared out of his wits, makes his escape and ends up in the room of a posh young woman.
Ma chi è? Ah, finalmente un po' di brivido. Lei è un ladro? Sì, lei è un ladro.
Her attitude is more than a little reminiscent of Gabi's fascination with bad boys in Pepe Le Moko. But when she offers to pay him in jewels for the excitement he's provided, he lacks any of the fascination that Pepe had for diamonds and pearls.
Lei volete rubarmi? Ecco.
Signore, per chi mi ha preso? Io non sono abituato a farmi pagare dalle donne. Si tenga i suoi geni.
When he gets back to the Casbah, he discovers that he's the most wanted man in Algiers, with a price on his head that's even higher than the price that Pepe had on his head.
Superato una taglia di Pepe di 900.000 franchi.
Sciocchi. Lavagna. Oddio, c'ho la testa sulla teglia, c'ho la teglia sulla testa, c'ho la taglia sulla testa.
When the police come looking for Toto, the denizens of the Casbah employ their unique musical form of communication to warn him. This is a little more entertaining than the system they had set up for Pepe Le Moko, if you remember. The character of Inez, the gypsy woman that Pepe was shacked up with, has been renamed Sulema in this version, and she has some news for Toto, given the fact that he now has a price on his head.
Piuttosto, mi dica dov'è la stazione.
Ma sì, lo so, piccolo Moko, che tu cerchi di partire. Tutti i Moko sognano di partire dalla Casbah, ma ora tu non puoi più. No, hai sostituito Pepe.
And it doesn't take her long to transfer her affections to Toto.
Ma non lo sai che nella Casbah regna l'amore libero, violento, selvaggio.
And because she feels the Le Moko blood running through his veins, she pledges her eternal love to him.
Quest'oggi, questa notte, sempre, finché continuerà a sorgere e a tramontare il sole.
And then she has her way with him. She seems to believe she can substitute Toto for Pepe, and it seems like she may have gotten a better deal this time. After all, Pepe was getting pretty tired of her before he died.
Il sapore dei tuoi baci è come quello di Pepe.
And then Sulema tells Toto that she knows Pepe's secret, a hair potion that had made him invincible and drew women to him like a magnet. She gives it to him, and he now goes out into the world feeling no fear. After he proves his new powers to the gang, Sulema asks him for a kiss.
Ho dato il mio bacio da oggi?
Ma non so.
Almeno 1000. 1000? Ah sì? E allora vieni qua, bambina. Ti voglio far milionario.
So, things seem to be going very well for Sulema. Maybe she'll have her happily ever after in this version. Well, not so fast. Does this look familiar?
E Toto Le Moko verrà? Ah sì sì, diteci, dov'è il terribile Toto?
As you can see, Toto's reputation precedes him, and this glamorous tourist can't wait to meet him. Then Toto makes his entrance. Their eyes meet from across the room. And although there's fire, it pales in comparison to Pepe and Gabi's first meeting. Toto goes over to the woman's table and he suddenly recognizes her.
Come va? Ma noi ci conosciamo, signora.
È vero, l'hai vista?
She's the posh woman from the hotel room, and she's thrilled to meet the infamous Toto Le Moko. But Sulema, who's working there as a belly dancer, looks on jealously as he romances the woman, just as Inez looked on jealously as Pepe romanced Gabi. Toto's story is about to echo that of Pepe, and what we are about to see blows both Pepe Le Moko and Pepe Le Pew out of the water. Toto Le Moko is the indisputable dance king of the Casbah. And how does the new woman in his life feel about his display?
Lei è veramente un uomo meraviglioso, così dinamico, così prepotente.
It seems like all the women in the Casbah have a thing for bad boys. Suddenly, the police raid the place, and Toto believes himself to be so invincible that he doesn't even bother to run.
Scherzi di manette, scherzi di villanette. È finito il tempo degli scherzi, caro Le Moko. Avanti, andiamo!
And so he's arrested, just like Pepe was finally arrested when he left the Casbah to stop Gabi from leaving on a ship.
Tu vois, Pépé, tu es venu à mon rendez-vous et tu ne m'as pas posé de lapin. Je savais bien que je pouvais te faire confiance.
Non, non, pas ici.
Si tu veux, je ne peux rien te refuser.
And how did Slimane know that Pepe was at the harbor? Ah, hell hath no fury like that of a woman scorned.
Pépé s'en va.
Il s'en va. Qu'est-ce que tu me dis là?
Il est au port. Il va s'embarquer.
And her heart is just breaking at her own betrayal of him.
Faut-il que tu aies de la peine?
Meanwhile, Toto manages to escape a few minutes after his arrest, but it seems like success has gone to his head and he sets himself up for a downfall. Sulema is overjoyed to see him when he returns to the Casbah.
Finalmente sei arrivato.
Siamo uomini o cavallo?
Andiamo a casa.
Ma lasciami andare, faccetta nera.
Traditore. Papà.
Ma vai via, terrona.
A te, la mala Pasqua.
Cosa me ne frega? È Ferragosto.
He should not have done that. She gave him his power and she can take it away.
Contro di lei che devi agire, contro di lui. Sì, ma cosa posso fare? Ebbene, tu gli hai dato la forza rivelandogli il segreto di Pepe Le Moko. Ora gliela puoi togliere, così sarà un uomo finito.
And so, like Delilah to his Samson, is this the beginning of the end? He seems to think so when he wakes up in the morning.
Totò? Totò?
Chi è?
La tua bambola sanguinaria!
Non si può!
Sono io, Vivian!
Mi sto mettendo la camicia! Sono in manica di capelli! Sono in manica di mutande! Accidenti!
And just as Gabi unintentionally lured Pepe to his demise, Toto's new elegant woman urges him to fight over her, saying that men have fought over her with many weapons, but never with a knife, and she would like to complete her collection. And to make matters worse, it turns out he has to fight the real Pepe Le Moko, who wasn't dead after all and is really angry to find out he has an heir when he thought he'd already killed all his relatives. And now that the real Pepe is back, the gang is on his side and turn against Toto. But he manages to escape and put his one-man band skills to use in his own defense. He finally defeats the gang and is proclaimed a national hero. With the reward money, he returns to Napoli and realizes his lifelong dream of conducting his own band. And so, it turns out that Toto's true love is not a woman, but la musique. How romantique. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there have been 2 remakes of Pepe Le Moko. The first was released in Hollywood the very next year, 1938. It was called Algiers and stars Charles Boyer as Pepe, Sigrid Gourier as Inez, and Hedy Lamarr as Gabi. The second remake, called Casbah, came out just 10 years later and starred Tony Martin as Pepe, Yvonne Di Carlo as Inez, and Marta Torren as Gabi. And they made it a musical of all things. I don't know what they were thinking. Anyway, both of the remakes are fairly faithful adaptations of the original film, so we're only going to take a quick survey of the sex appeal of each of the leading men. But first, a couple of observations. Have you ever wondered why they chose to make Pepe Le Pew a skunk rather than any other animal? Let me give you a few clues. Still not sure? I think maybe Yvonne Di Carlo can help you out. It's almost as if she were looking into her own future when she took on the role of Inez. Of course, her taste in men really went downhill. To me, one of the most romantic scenes in any of the versions is when Pepe and Gabi meet for the first time and their eyes meet from across the room. And Algiers is no exception. Notice that her jewels are almost as irresistible to him as she is. Let's see how the same scene plays out in Casbah.
Are there thieves in the Casbah?
Yes.
What would you suggest?
I suggest you be careful.
In Casbah, Gabi makes her attraction to Pepe even more obvious when her fiancé objects to Pepe asking her to dance.
Let's not be impolite, Claude. I'd like very much to dance with this gentleman.
The first time I saw this, I thought she said, "I'd very much like to bask in this gentleman." And I think that would have been a much better line, don't you? Anyway, just like Jean Gabin, both of these Pepes meet up with resistance to their first attempt at a kiss.
Don't you gamble?
Only if I win.
But like Pepe Le Pew, they don't give up. And one of our Gabis finds herself on the couch with Pepe, who uses this time to open up to her.
For 2 years I've been lost, like walking in my sleep. Suddenly I wake up, that's you. Do you know what you are to me? Paris. That's you.
In Casbah, she first succumbs to Pepe's kisses in a corner of the club. But Tony Martin kind of ruins the moment.
Take this. It's very expensive, really it is.
What's it worth? 50,000 francs? It's a lot of money. All for love.
In a way, it's not surprising. All that noir-style banter kind of hinted at things getting rough. Meanwhile, in Algiers, Charles Boyer is rewarded for his patience. And again.
Smell good.
The subway.
Streamlined.
And again. In Casbah, Pepe and Gabi do eventually end up on the couch as well, but in this version, Gabi seems to have the upper hand.
What were you like as a little boy?
I was skinny. Suppose I wanted all the things I couldn't have.
I wanted things too. But in my town they had a strange notion. They insisted that you go to work.
In fact, although all of our Pepes are smitten with Gabi, in Casbah there seems to be a complete role reversal as Pepe begs Gabi to let him come to France with her.
Gabi, wait. Don't go. It won't be long. I'll get out.
But you can't.
I can. We'll go to a little town outside of Paris. No one will know me there.
Yes. I can just see you in a small town.
Why not? Do you think I like this life so much? Gabi, we can live like everybody else.
You'll be bored. You want to go to Paris.
We'll go to Paris and we'll see all the places I used to know. The cafes and the shops.
Somehow I can't imagine Jean Gabin's Pepe, or even Charles Boyer's Pepe, begging a woman for anything. But one thing that Tony Martin's Pepe has over the other two is his treatment of Inez. In both Algiers and Casbah, Pepe shows more tenderness to Inez than in Pepe Le Moko, but by the end of Algiers, he's grown cold and distant with her. Notice the gentle affection in this early scene from Algiers.
That's what I like about you.
What?
Never mind.
Now notice the stark contrast when he's leaving the Casbah.
You can't do it, Pepe. You can't leave me. What have I done?
It has nothing to do with you, Ines. You're a good kid, but this can't be helped.
Contrast that with the genuine affection that Pepe and Inez seem to feel for each other at the beginning of Casbah. And notice how that tenderness still remains as he's bidding her farewell.
Why don't you do something? Say something. At least cry. Goodbye, Inez.
Of course, there's a lot more to all these movies than I could cover here because I just wanted to focus on the romantic aspect. But as a final exercise, how do all of our Pepes stack up against our little friend Pepe Le Pew? Jean Gabin in Pepe Le Moko has the look, he has the accent, and he has the charm. I'd say he's a pretty good match. Toto doesn't really have the look or the accent, but at least he has an accent. And of course he's very charming in his own way, so I'd still give him a couple of points. Charles Boyer has the accent but not the look, and he has a suave kind of dark charm of his own, but I think he pales in comparison to Pepe Le Pew, so maybe 1.5 out of 3. And Tony Martin doesn't have the look, the accent, or even the charm, but he does have a heart, and that's got to count for something when you're comparing to a great lover like Pepe Le Pew. Which of these pairs of eyes would you want to find yourself gazing into? Let me know in the comments. Meanwhile, I have a rendezvous with Monsieur Le Pew. Ooh.
Come, Pink Pigeon. We are wasting valuable time.
Excusez-moi, Monsieur Le Pew, but I have some errands to run. May I meet you at your place later? Say 7 o'clock?
These American girls, always on the go. Oh, hello there. I am so glad you could come.
Oh, monsieur, I would not have missed it for anything.
You have never looked more ravishing.
Oh, monsieur, you're making me blush.
Do you mind waiting just 1 minute, golden girl, while I slip into something more comfortable?
Oh, by all means. By the way, what's for dinner?
A loaf of bread, a jug of wine, and me?
Now you're talking.
Sit down, darling.
You were magnificent, darling. When can I see you again?
Come with me to the Casbah.
Mais oui. If you enjoyed our little show today, be sure to join us next time for the first episode of our new series, 100 Years of Romance. We're going to begin our decade-by-decade tour of love and sex in the movies by turning the clock back 100 years to the Roaring '20s. So remember to subscribe and hit the bell notification button so you can keep up to date on the whole series. Until then, au revoir!